2015 meeting of the Raleigh Conservation Commission. This meeting of the Raleigh Conservation Commission is hereby called to order under authority of MGL, Chapter 131, Section 40, and the Town of Raleigh's Wetlands Protection Bylaw and the Stormwater Management and Erosion Control Bylaw. I will now call the roll for attendance. Dave Delmonico.
Here.
Bob Garner.
Here.
Judy Keys.
Here.
Sam Strife is absent. Arthur Page.
Yep.
Kurt Turner.
Here.
Doug Watson.
Here.
Chairing, and we have a quorum present. Mr. Chairman.
And what do we have administratively?
Well, I
I don't
would
have a pen.
respectfully request
Sorry,
signing to
can't do that. I don't have a
authorize
pen.
my payroll. Here, I got a couple of pens.
For payroll, I'll come up with a pen. Thank you.
And for your perusal, my not quite complete yet time and hour sheet. Thank you. And even though it's a week early, I have a couple of expenses that I'm requesting reimbursement on.
Excuse me.
And here's backup for the cell phone monthly allowance and for the half case of recycled paper for the office. Thank you very much. One more. Yes, and for review this meeting minutes of our January 6th meeting.
Are all other prior minutes been before us and approved?
Pardon me?
Have all other prior meeting minutes been before us and approved prior to this date?
Absolutely not.
I thought.
Continuing work in progress. Now, only the first page has been approved for grammar and other inconsistencies by our senior assistant. So the other two pages are all my fault and more than likely do have some type of review for punctuation. Hopefully not for spelling, but you never can tell because I was getting constantly interrupted today.
punctuation-wise on the Conley matter on page 2. Fifth line, commissions is possessive, so it's an apostrophe S. And 5 lines below that, there's an extra comma after Mr.
Before that, above the heading of the Conley one,
Yeah.
says commission. Okay, forget that. Going back to the item above that, Forest Ridge Drive, did you accuse yourself on that?
No, I didn't.
Okay. Carryover paragraph on the top of page 2. The end of the main paragraph there.
Yep.
I don't understand that sentence. You would specifically stated sentence. Something's not-
Well, to summarize, that was in reference to the fact that one of the reasons he got in trouble was for going in and cutting Greenbrier and Bittersweet in order to gain access to wind-blown litter. At least that was his statement to the commission. And so the commission did have a discussion that there would be invasive species suppression when they replanted and restored the area, and that they also would be allowed to suppress, for lack of a better word, the enthusiastic growth of Greenbrier, even though it was a native species. So there was discussion when he asked for this, or when it was requested for the letter of return to compliance. The environmental firm that was here representing him, Laura Kraus with DeRosa Environmental, was put at a little disadvantage by the fact that Mr. Coughlin called me at 6 p.m. and had a conversation with me about this request, but had not gotten in contact with DeRosa Environmental.
Okay, I'm up to speed on the, it would help the reading of that sentence if the last 3 words were hyphenated, limited vegetation management.
Sure, we can do that. Yeah, the idea was that he could come back in if things started running amok in the area.
Yeah, no, right, I agree.
Oh,
I
okay,
remember
okay.
that, it's just that the wording made me think that there was a missing verb tense or something.
Okay, starting with the Sabatini situation, we suddenly switched into present tense.
Oh, I wouldn't doubt it.
So it should be Baslack reviewed and,
Commented,
Yeah,
found.
yeah,
Okay,
and it
yeah,
should be
you're right.
approved.
yep, so I can change, yep,
Commented,
yep.
had, found.
Yep.
Good, one of
Notes,
it. Yep, noted.
moved, back to past.
Well, the motion things are already put in there in preparation when we start putting this together.
Great.
That's done ahead of time, and I fill in the commentary since I've actually been at the meeting, whereas the assistant hasn't.
The same situation in the status report section, just
Mhm.
switch to past.
And the discussion below that.
In addition to the thought about field visit images were distributed, it's good to have in there.
So on the page 3, under the paragraph called discussion, with a sentence that's not quite a sentence, I can't remember what we were talking about. Equipment for trail and property management purposes.
Oh. Yeah, I forgot to make that into a sentence, didn't I?
What were we saying there?
Purchase of?
Purchase of, discussion of? I guess either one.
I reviewed.
Okay, reviewed.
That's where I introduced the
Yep. Fully guarded
idea
trail
of
cam.
acquisition of a trail cam and acquisition of the
Right.
tree wrench, weed wrench, or the Pull-A-Bear product.
Right. And then I guess actually 2 sentences later, information on a tree wrench product named Pull-A-Bear isn't a sentence either, so it was
Right.
presented or something.
Yes.
Yeah. On status reports, this is under status reports, so that means that the very last item, for example, notice of violation letter, is that such that we had already issued the notice of violation letter and we're just getting an update on it?
I believe in that particular situation, I introduced it to you for confirmation that it was appropriate and correctly worded, since the information on the violation originated with the DEP
Right.
field visit, which is not our normal protocol for issuing such things.
So do we need to add something there saying commission approved the violation notice, or?
Yeah, that might help clarify and cause other folks not to have the same question you just did as to what was going on.
What was
there.
going on? Yeah.
So I could just add, commission reviewed and approved issuance of the letter.
Right. Right. Okay. For me. Anybody else? Any changes? Anybody all set? Yes. Is there a motion to approve the draft of the January 6th, 2015 minutes of the meeting? No, minutes of the January 6th, 2015 meeting?
So move.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All against, and the motion carries. Okay.
I can email out the corrected version to you guys, as a PDF document.
All right, so this is moving on to the 7:45 item on the agenda. This is a new request for a determination of applicability for land off Main Street, map 34, parcel/lot 5, Holly Emery of Boston University Marine Program. Here, Holly?
Hi.
Hi, Holly, welcome. This is a legal notice of the Raleigh Conservation Commission. In accordance with the Wetlands Protection Act, Mass General Laws 131, Section 40, as amended, and the Town of Raleigh's Wetland Protection Bylaw. A public meeting will be held on Tuesday, April 14th, 2015 at 7:45 PM at Room 5, Town Hall Annex, 39 Central Street, to consider a request for determination of applicability application filed by Holly Emery, Boston University Marine Program, for a climate change study of precipitation change on greenhouse gas emissions, utilizing PVC frame structures in high salt marsh, possibly in salt marsh, land subject to coastal storm flowage, estimated habitat of rare wildlife, and an area of critical environmental concern at land off Main Street, map 34, parcel 5 in Rowley. Hi, Holly.
Hi, how are you?
Good. And Brent, do we have a memo?
No, you don't,
Okay.
but I did distribute suggested conditions for this project, which actually were used in a very similar project. And I figured that Holly and I could just verbally review. We did conduct a site visit yesterday.
You did, okay.
Yeah.
So Holly, why don't you just tell us in summary way what you have planned up there?
Sure, I'm a PhD student at Boston University, and for my dissertation research, I'm studying the effects of climate change.
Okay.
And I would like to put some structures out in the marsh that would catch the rain and redistribute it onto experimental plots. And then I would measure the microbial community in the sediment and the greenhouse gases that it produces and consumes.
Okay. And how long would this project last, do you think?
This growing season, so I'd go out and put them out as soon as I can, and then before the winter storms pick up, so maybe just November-ish, I
Okay,
would take everything out of the marsh.
all right. And how far away is this from the nearest vehicular access, and how are you getting in?
There's a map somewhere.
Yep.
It's in the it's in the Rough Meadows Mass Audubon Sanctuary,
Right.
off their walking trail.
Yep.
The access that way, off like Patmos Road and Bar Division Road is the most
Okay.
direct way, but it's also next to Main Street.
Seems like with PVC framing, you should be able to, pretty light, you should be able to carry it in easily enough.
Oh, yeah.
Brent, anything you'd like to tell us about this project? I looked it over, it's pretty
No,
straightforward.
in our journey going out to the site, I discussed the concerns with Holly that mostly centered on the repetitive access to the frames, which would be anywhere from 2 to 3 times a month because it's based on tidal cycles. And if I say anything wrong, kick me or just let me know. And so where it's established, there's a general lack of any other physical features other than the salt marsh mosquito control ditching that's been there for quite a while.
Yep.
There were some flags put out there. In the landowner agreement that Mass Audubon requested Ms. Emery sign, they did ask for provisions that there would be educational signage established in the Rough Meadows parking lot so that folks, Mass Audubon closed off Far Division Road to anything but foot traffic. So the parking kiosk area seems the likely place where, of course, most people look at the sign that's there anyway, so they would have to walk down the trails, and hopefully they'd be consulting the trail map before they got down there, so they would hopefully have their questions answered prior to them getting 2 to 3/10 of a mile down the road and saying, what are those things out in the marsh?
Start trashing or something.
As well as we have, one of our suggested conditions that we developed early on was to have the frames identified, because even though they're anchored in the marsh, because the lines of sight there are so great, it's entirely possible that some inquisitive people may come out to them, as well as we also wanted to cover the eventuality if they happen to get dislodged,
Yeah.
that, whoever ended up finding it would understand its owner, but also identifying it with a major educational institution, I think relieves some people's anxiety over what is actually going on out there. Hopefully not the growing and raising of any controlled substances or whatever, so, but, anyway, imaginations can run wild, so the limited information that we request to be put on the frames themselves, and then combined with Mass Audubon's desire to take advantage of an educational opportunity for people visiting their properties, should resolve
good.
those type of issues.
Yeah. I had similar frames in the National Park Service on the Cape,
On the Cape.
and lots of people stopped by to ask. I actually have a website, so I can refer people to the website.
Okay, is that gonna be on the signage?
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely, yeah.
Good idea. Yeah. Okay. That's a picture of your Cape project there, right? Yeah.
It's helpful to me to, that you included the pictures in your application, because I was trying to visualize it as I read it, and
Yeah.
it looks a lot different than what I was visualizing. Was the Cape experiment similar or substantially the same, or a different
It
experiment?
is substantially the same. It's the same structures, the same treatments.
I'm looking for the same thing.
Yeah.
Can you share your results of that with us?
Sure. My preliminary results are that climate change doesn't seem to be doing a whole lot, which is good news. There's a big change in precipitation. It's mostly overwhelmed by the fact that these are tidal environments. My reason for wanting to move it from the Cape here is the Cape is a very sandy area. This is a more peaty traditional marsh. And I'm going to be doing some microbial work, so there's going to be a better chance of there actually being microbes to look at in sediment.
Great.
Makes sense. All right, any other questions by anyone? Anything else you'd like to add, Holly?
Thank you.
Brent, anything else? All right, in that case, I think I need, what is this thing?
It's an RDA, so
RDA.
that would be the one thing that was missing from my memo. If the commission finds that this proposed project does not have or has an extremely limited and minimal ability to alter, dredge, fill, or remove the resource area that it's located in, i.e. salt marsh, therefore the commission may wish to declare that this is they may wish to find a negative determination where the work described in the request is within an area subject to protection under the Act, but will not remove, fill, dredge, or alter that area. Therefore, said work does not require the filing of a notice of intent, subject to the following conditions contained in attachment A incorporated here and made part of this determination, which I distributed to you, and which Holly also has reviewed.
All right, do I have a motion to so find?
One more thing, if I may.
Yeah.
Sure.
I think it would be helpful if something could be given to Holly to add to the postings already there that the project has been approved by the Conservation Commission, assuming a favorable vote here.
That's a good idea, actually,
Although,
just to say this project has been approved by the Rowley Conservation Commission, because it kind of says that it has
Oh,
the
well, we
approval
would
of the authority.
Just suggest that she include that to her educational
Yes,
signage in
exactly,
the
but
Rough
that's-
Meadows parking
I
lot.
think that's helpful to citizens to know that, somebody's on the job on this,
Yeah.
besides Audubon, of course. Good, that's a good idea.
And I had looked at your schematics, I had noticed that your anchors were more for sand, or at least they seemed like they were.
Those will work.
The
very-
alders?
Yeah, I mean,
Those will work very good in the peat,
Will it?
even more than sand.
Okay,
yeah.
all right.
it might be a little bit more than is really needed here with
Right.
the sand.
I just wanted to say, if they didn't work, would you have a contingency or something like that?
Those will work.
Those
If
will
they,
work.
he's always out in the marsh.
Yeah,
Yeah.
those will
I'll
work.
go by.
They'll use those for anchors on docks, I mean.
Right.
Hard thing will be to get them out.
Well, and actually,
And they got-
my dealing with National Grid and the other transmission line folks is that's what they typically use in high organic.
And yet they are easy to get out, really.
They just
Yeah,
place
no,
these
they'll unscrew out,
Yeah.
yeah.
They kept the structures on the Cape in 40-mile-an-hour winds.
Yeah, I have no doubt. My concern was the fact that the sand would be easy to go through. You know, you're gonna get out there and then you're gonna find that you can't get these things in the ground. That's what I was concerned with.
All right, with those comments in mind, do I have a motion to so find based on what Brent just read, which is negative option number something or another, but I can't.
Negative determination option number 2.
Negative determination option number 2, thank you. Some of these are
I'll,
hard to keep in mind. You so move.
I so moved.
All right, is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All against? And the motion carries.
Thank you
Great,
so much.
thanks for coming up.
Good luck.
Good luck.
Is there pieces of paper permit I should expect?
I will
at
be,
some point?
yes, you will
Thank
be getting that very shortly.
Thank you.
More than likely entrusted to the United States Postal Service tomorrow prior to 1 p.m.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
As well as I also usually scan it and I'll send it to you via email too. So.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Tomorrow is last tax day. You gotta stand in a line.
That's right. I got mine in today. It's also the big quarterly estimated taxes I did.
Yeah.
He was working with or under the auspices of the same lady who was here a couple of
Yeah,
years ago, right?
Robinson Full
Right, same academic
Yeah,
department or something.
Marine,
I think they have their headquarters at Martin Burns, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay.
Or they have a headquarters.
Boston University Marine Program.
This is the 8 o'clock item on the agenda, a new emergency certification for 1 Blair Drive, map 27A, parcel 15 in Raleigh and Ipswich. It says Ipswich, but it's in Raleigh in part. Peter Ross, driveway maintenance for emergency vehicle access to dwelling. And I think we talked about this a little bit the last meeting. And,
Yes,
and,
this is before the commission for confirmation and ratification in consultation with Doug and Kurt. This has already been issued because it was a time-sensitive situation. To just try and summarize, the occupied residence is located in Ipswich, and there is a circular drive that goes off of what I think is still called Leslie Road.
Leslie,
Even at that location in Ipswich, I believe it is still called Leslie Road. So the northern arc of the driveway goes into the municipality of Raleigh. And during winter, this is also the more level portion of his circular drive, where the southern loop in Ipswich goes up over a rise and then comes down a slope directly adjacent to another house that, for lack of a better description, is sort of located in a little bit of the center, one part of the center of that big arc. He doesn't typically utilize the sloped higher portion of the drive due to winter icing conditions, as well as the fact that it's so close to that abutting property that any snow you tried to clear from it, he'd be pushing it down a slope onto their backyard and side yard, which isn't good for neighbor relations, I gather. So the situation developed that because of the very thick snow cover, he said normally at this time of year the upper portion of his drive would have dried out and he wouldn't be using the flat Rowley portion because it gets quite wet, being located next to a forested intermittent stream wetlands system, as well as just typical mud season conditions. It's not improved a lot, it's basically a real dirt drive. But it was starting to develop that he was afraid he wasn't going to be able to utilize it without bringing in some supplemental gravel to put where it was starting to get real squishy. As well as that brought up the issue of emergency vehicle access to an occupied dwelling. And so the request was made for permission, because he's an attorney and he knows that he's in a regulated buffer zone where the driveway is, and he didn't want to be accused of depositing fill without appropriate approval from the commission. So as we have seen, the snow cover has left rather quickly and abruptly, so I believe the situation has resolved itself on its own by the disappearance of snow cover. But anyway, he sought to have permission in case it deteriorated so much. And I did inspect the site, and it was, I did not take my Civic down his driveway. My Civic stayed on the side of Leslie Road. Because it was treacherous, so.
Do you know if he ever installed the
No, I
fill?
do not.
Yeah, may not have had to.
You may not have had to.
Yeah.
Because first off, mostly it was snow melt, not a lot of precipitation, but,
Right.
but again, I mean, he was just being very responsible
Oh, yeah.
and seeking the appropriate permission.
That's great.
And it was conditioned so that it was only gonna be clean, natural gravel and only put within the existing driveway area if you did bring any.
Okay, so I think we authorized this. What do we need to do? Ratify it as a commission?
Yes,
Or just that?
yeah,
Okay.
confirm its issuance, ratify it, and then sign it if you so vote.
Any questions by other commissioners about it? No? All right, is there a motion to ratify and confirm the issuance of the emergency certification?
So move.
And a second.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All against? The motion carries.
Yep.
Didn't mean to take it away from
No, no, I was, all yours.
previously sent this out via email. Yes. Just to reacquaint, this is for the next agenda item.
this is, next agenda item is 810 item, discussion of an article, proposed article to designate tax title land at 9 Turcot Memorial Drive, map 17, parcel 20, lot 41, town of Rowley, to be placed into care and custody as protected open space. Actually, I said proposed. I think it is it's going to be an article, is it? Am I right? And we're just being asked whether we wish to support that article?
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I realize that the treasurer and the assessor very graciously, instead of having this go through everything else with the other tax title properties for consideration to the auction, they just contacted me and said, do you know about this parcel? We think it might be, well, basically not buildable and mostly all wetlands and the stormwater basin and right adjacent to conservation land. So they said, do you think this would be better off being conservation land? And I'm like, oh yeah, I know what you're talking about. Yeah, I don't think anybody would even want to purchase it because I don't think you can do anything with it.
No.
And so the next thing I know, they had directly sent it to the selectman's office without it actually coming over here and stopping, for us to, for me to present it to the commissioners as a confirmatory type thing, so.
We did talk about it at our last meeting, and we were supportive of that.
Did we talk about this
No,
one?
I don't know if it
not
was this one,
particular-
but
no,
we did it
not
many
this
others.
particular
You ran
parcel, yes.
through about 14 of them. and-
Yeah.
Yeah, and
I
this
thought
was
this was
not,
one of them.
and this was not one of them.
It should have been. I mean,
It should have been.
by rights,
yes.
yeah, that's right. Because I saw it, but it was standing in your office.
But
It's not-
they analyzed it and headed it right off at the pass, saying, well, there's no sense even thinking of putting this up for auction, because it's not gonna go anywhere. So,
Well, the other two that we did approve that action, those also going to be on the warrant?
The two that we expressed interest in.
I don't believe so. I would have to follow up and see what the discussions
And they have to have
were
something
with
for
the
this.
selectmen, because they were being directed to go through the process of possible auctioning, so it would have been up to the selectmen to divert them from the pathway to possibly being auctioned, and I don't know.
Yeah, I don't
I'd have
think
to
it's.
I'd have to follow up and see what their deliberations
I don't
resulted in.
remember what they were. One of them was.
I
was
have the
Weathersfield
memo
Street
right
near
here.
Right.
351 Weathersfield Street, parcel 19815,
Across the street from.
and then the Raleigh Pines Trust property identified as lot 26, parcel 173626, which we were familiar with because of the wetlands replication initiated by Frank Todd to complete part of the obligations under the order of conditions for Saunders Lane.
That's the one on Saunders Lane,
That's the
right?
one on Saunders Lane, yes.
Those are the two.
Yes. That I alerted you to, that it was actually grouped with another parcel right on the other side of the street that was supposed to be open space.
Right.
This certainly seems like a worthy addition to our conservation land.
I think they'd be kind of shocked if we said no. Now
So
what?
what do you need? You need a vote
We
of
need a
approval?
motion to, let's see.
To support.
To support.
Support the article and to seek to designate it as protected open space under Article 97.
Any further discussion, any questions? Do I have a motion to that effect?
So move.
And a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And all against? And the motion carries.
And just as a heads up, you will be seeing another one of these next meeting that I was just made aware of today.
Where's that one?
It's actually out, it's within a stone's throw, if you recollect, the parcel that Fish and Wildlife purchased from the town that was out near a place that has been referred to as Picnic Point, out
Yeah, yeah.
out Lower Pond
Across the road from
Road
my
to
house.
where it actually turns into Dyke Street, I think is what it's called. out
Across
there.
from your house.
Yes.
I wouldn't have said it that way, but you're
Yeah.
right, I guess it is.
Well, and
From the
this,
other end.
and this other parcel that we'll be talking about next meeting is actually a little further along Dyke Street as it
Yeah.
arches around the hill there, so it's
Yeah.
probably even closer to your house.
Right.
A little bit.
Brenda's town meeting is May, it's on a Monday.
9th or something?
May
Yeah,
2nd.
yeah.
Or a calendar.
Well, May 5th is a Tuesday.
Yeah, well, it's May 3rd,
Thir-
town meeting, so if we, I mean, this isn't gonna do us any good. Can't we get this voted tonight?
The one he just referred to.
Yes.
Well,
Otherwise, you know, the warrant's probably closed, so it's not
the
gonna.
warrant's already closed and done. In fact, they were folding them for mailing when I was in the selectman's office today. So the one that's coming up next meeting, even if you voted on it tonight, it's not going to be put on any warrant until whenever the next appropriate meeting is, maybe in the fall. they might
Okay,
do
so it didn't get
or-
on this warrant.
No.
This one
No.
did, but the next
This one, as I said,
Yeah.
the treasurer and the assessors already
Streamline.
streamlined, yeah, that's a good word, streamlined its pathway along.
Okay.
When is our next meeting then? Are we not meeting Tuesday? Being pushed off till Wednesday?
Next meeting is May 5th.
That's Tuesday,
We are
right?
meeting May 5th.
Yes.
We've always not had a meeting on the day after town meeting.
Yes.
This town meeting goes to.
Well, there's a good question, and we should talk about that.
We would postpone the
So-
meeting and move it to Wednesday if we had to.
Which
If
would be
we-
the 6th, right?
Which would be the 6th.
Right.
I think, Kurt, are you saying, and I seem to think we have on occasion decided to do that
Preemptively.
Thank you.
I just-
Prophylactically was the word I was thinking of, and that didn't quite sound right. Preemptively, thank you. Just in case town meeting runs over. So,
Proactive.
proactively. So, have we done that in the past?
I mean, can you
Well,
post it in the
problem-
alternative?
Well, that's the
We-
thing.
we-
Well, no,
That's the
because
worry.
I think elections are the following week.
Right.
No, I just mean
One
show
day.
it for the 5th or the 6th, post the next meeting for the 5th or the 6th.
Oh, yes,
So the
yeah,
town meeting runs-
preemptively, I could file notices for that, yes. And in the past, what we've done, if we get an indication that there might be an overage at town meeting, when I've notified applicants on the agenda, I've included a thing about the fact that we would notify them that day if we were going to have to postpone the meeting for one evening. So yes, I can accomplish all the meeting notice type documentation certainly ahead of time.
Great. We haven't run over in a long time. One never knows.
No, we haven't run over in a long time, and also we have not been seeing a substantial influx or increase in applications right at the moment, although I would expect that's going to change shortly now that the snow's gone. But-
Yeah, just the late building
But, well,
season, but it's
well,
gonna
but there's
happen. Yeah,
There's been indications, we have had a number of people talk to us about preliminary discussions about
right.
projects and permitting, but we haven't seen anything since the snow cover arrived, in terms of them coming back,
Right.
talking about anything.
Yep. Okay, well, let's do that. We'll just post it in that fashion for both days,
Yeah.
just in case.
I can
Assuming we can get this room. Planning board meeting on Wednesdays or something?
Yeah, we do, I can look, I don't think they have anything posted. I just did the stickering the other day, but I'll take a look.
All right. Brings us to the next item, 820 item on the agenda, which is entitled Regulations of Minor Activities, 310 CMR 10.02.
So Brent, why don't you tell us what we're
Okay, the,
thinking about here?
in the
Context.
October 2014 revision to the regulations, 310 CMR 10.00, whatever, the minor activities section, which you have presented before you, under G, they specifically inserted, which had not been there before, the words percolation tests for septic systems. Before that, it basically just talked about negligible impacts for planning and design purposes and gave the examples of monitoring wells, exploratory borings, sediment sampling, and surveying. Now, as we have seen in Raleigh, we have sometimes had RDA applications for soil evaluations which were pretty much pro forma in how they were reviewed because they were in relatively dry, previously developed lawn areas with really very minimal potential impacts to undisturbed buffer zone or regulated areas. But then we've also seen, because Raleigh was settled so early on in colonization of this part of the coast, that we also have lots which are extremely tight, which are most definitely previously filled wetland areas, and therefore even when the fill's put in place, they still have high groundwater and issues such as 5 feet to a natural water body or stream course, or things like that. Situations where this commission has, I think, appropriately advised prior installation of erosion control, even for the rather temporary activity of doing an excavation to perform perk testing and soil evaluations, which can be a hole basically the size of this table. Sometimes a little smaller, but pretty close to like this table.
Not only that, but we have approved crossing resource areas to get to those places.
Right.
And this doesn't make sense to me.
Well, this is the quandary between, in some communities that are pretty substantially developed and might not have quite the abundance of wetland resource areas that Raleigh does as a coastal community, where doing soil evaluation is looked upon as, you know, SOP, standard operating procedure, no problems at all, never any issues, and that's not quite exactly the case here. So this is before the commission for discussion tonight. Now, we have a wetlands bylaw which identifies the buffer zone, all 100 feet of the buffer zone, as being as the same status as a resource area as bordering vegetated wetlands or salt marsh or stream, lake, pond. So our local ordinance says that the buffer zone is a resource area, not just a regulated area, whereas the state law looks at the buffer zone as just being an area where activities are regulated, not that it has the potential of altering, filling, dredging, or removing that buffer zone. That's not how it's looked at under the state regulations. I added the underlines in this highlighted section because the reason this is before the commission tonight is to rather to continue with our policy of when anyone applies to do soil evaluations or perk testing, we have the Board of Health has adopted a policy that because Board of Health regulations are based, they specifically, for new construction, do not want to see a subsurface sewage disposal system installed within the 100-foot buffer zone. Well, you can only accomplish that if you have some type of review that establishes where the BVW is and therefore how far out the 100-foot buffer zone actually extends. In other words, you need some kind of delineation, some type of review by the Conservation Department in order to have that regulation within the Board of Health's purview make any sense. Now, for repairs, they understand that soil evaluations and sometimes systems need to be installed in the buffer zone. No two ways about it. That sometimes has to occur.
You said for repairs.
For repairs, not for new construction.
Well, we've allowed new construction in the past.
In the buffer zone.
Yeah.
Yeah, but they
Right,
won't.
but all through
Right,
a permit review activity,
right.
not through this minor activities section. Basically, if you meet the criteria of what's stated in this, and you don't think that you're going to have impacts that aren't negligible, and you say that resource areas are not crossed, that means you don't even have to apply for a request to determine applicability from the commission. I'm not sure, but it's all dependent upon you folks as to how you wish this to be interpreted. In the past, our basic interpretation is the buffer zone is a resource area, so therefore under our local bylaw, you need to be applying to us for something. And we've looked at the excavation activity, and always remembering that there's at least 2 soil evaluation pits that are done, but actually in many cases they may do 3 or 4 in order to identify correct soils and location for the system. So if you don't think, and we haven't interpreted that as being a negligible activity, we looked at that as being an activity that needed some type of review in order to make sure that it was conducted in a manner that made it negligible.
That said, though, you know, there are a number of these come before us every year that really seem very pro forma.
Exactly.
And we're taking up their time and, in the case of their engineers, their money for a step in a process that's really preordained. It's not as if we would say no or even put any unexpected restrictions on them. So one thing I think you and I talked about, Brenda, is whether we could make that type of process administrative and thereby save the applicant's time and money.
Yeah. So Doug's provided me with an opening, so here's where the commission may wish to put some thought. There are some communities that under their bylaw, they have an administrative permit. And it's basically kind of configured to take care of repetitive activities such as this. It could be for, also include the construction of decks. In other words, activities that in many cases occur in previously altered areas and whose, and by the very nature of what's being done, as long as it's done in a fairly standardized manner, has limited risk to undisturbed resource areas that are in close proximity. So some communities have adopted what's called an administrative permit, at least I'll use that term, where their agent is allowed to conduct a site visit. A person applies for the permit, and there may be a fee that accompanies it because it does end up using some staff time. But then the agent is allowed to issue a permit without it going before the Conservation Commission and being voted on if it meets a set, what do I want to say, suite of criteria. And so in a sense, what Doug is saying and what I mentioned to Doug, this would mean doing a town meeting article for revising the bylaw. To put that option in there.
Which would save considerable time and money
Right.
for the,
It would allow one to be, well, and again, like all things, I'm not gonna say that it doesn't have the potential for maybe poor implementation or something, but, you know, you folks always hire a good person to fill the slot as being your professional staff. So other communities have done the same thing, and I can certainly find out whether there's been some downsides to certain things. I think Topsfield is the closest community that I'm directly aware of that has an administrative permit. But I would also make the suggestion that if the commission is going to seek to possibly put an article that would revise the bylaw, that at the same time, the fee section be removed from the bylaw and moved into the regulation part so that the fee structure could be revised and amended by the commission without it having to go through a town meeting process, because our fee structure is out of whack compared to all of the communities around us.
Even too low or too high?
Oh, way too low.
Except in at least one case, I think it may be too high, in my opinion.
Yeah. Well,
It just doesn't, it's not logical.
Do we have any other regulations?
No, we don't.
I have no problems with doing
We've-
this. I think it makes a lot of sense as long as there is an appeal to the full commission or an appeal to the commission in the event of a denial by the agent.
Oh, for the administrative thing, oh, absolutely, oh, for sure.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
But I think we have a lot on our plate without creating a whole set of regulations at this point, but I have no problem starting a regulation by putting something like this in it.
Right.
I think what Greg's saying.
I'm just saying, do the fees at the same time,
Yeah.
you do,
Yeah.
If
you do this
Drop
because,
those out, sure.
because you
we have an
can,
article,
you can make the appropriate case that at this point in time, staff time is not being appropriately compensated for by the fees that are assessed on the applicant. And that is certainly true. And it's why other communities, but also having those fees locked into the bylaw itself did not allow the flexibility that most all other communities with ordinances and bylaws have chosen as to how to have an environmental ordinance or bylaw. They usually move the fees out of that, since that's considered more an administrative part, and therefore subject to appropriate adjustments and stuff.
and I think your thought is, if we are going to propose a bylaw for town, propose an article for town meeting, that we ought to clean up both those things at the same time.
Right.
Because the administrative
Well, it's-
permit would have to be via town meeting. Am I
Absolutely.
right?
Yes.
That would be a revision to the bylaw.
To be a revision to the bylaw. And at the same time, you're doing that to say you're trying to put a structure to be more responsive to certain activities that the commission, through its experience, has found are less risky and not necessarily in need of a full hearing process or whatever. Again, as Kurt says, as long as you have a process that does allow inappropriate checks and balances to it. The other thing would be to say, and at the same time, we've noticed that our fee structure, which was codified back in 2004, does not allow us to be responsive and to seek to have our department get the necessary fees for actually compensating it for the time that's devoted to individual applicants.
Plus you'll need to.
Because basically what you're saying is that not having an appropriate fee structure, anyone who comes and applies is basically counting on the general tax revenues of the town to pay for the review and the process that their application goes through.
And a good example of that is the administrative permit, actually, because if there were a reasonable fee associated with that, it would still be far less expensive
Right.
for a typical applicant than paying an engineer to come in here for an evening and present
You're gonna
a
have
pro
to set
forma
one of those.
application.
Or then spending the number of hours,
Researching it.
preparing it and.
Right, right. That's gonna cost them more than doing it administratively. Right. All right, so that's just all for discussion at this point, am I right? Because
Yes.
these changes could
Well,
only occur through a town warrant, through the town warrant. through the
Except,
town meeting.
except for the situation that we have right now, that it is soil evaluation season,
Yep.
and the Board of Health is getting applications for perk testing, and I will be asked to comment. Now, the good news is the first one that came in was most definitely looking to perform soil evaluations in an undisturbed lot, in an undisturbed portion of the buffer zone, and so more than likely to get into there, they're going to have to go through unaltered buffer zone, maybe even be within what would normally be the 25-foot no cut, no disturb of some projections of BVW that are near there. So I just wanted to make sure that the commission would back me up when I say, well, we're looking here and we don't believe your activity will have negligible impacts. And we also believe that our buffer zone, since it is a resource area, you're crossing it, you're gonna be actually digging in it, you're gonna be clearing it to do these soil evaluations, and therefore, we feel you need an RDA that the commission has reviewed.
Well, as regulations presently stand, I think that's clear, because of our bylaw, right? That has to be the case.
I think we could authorize, I think we have discussed it. Yes, I think we could authorize Brent to plan his schedule such that he could draft the changes that he indicates are necessary in anticipation of a possible fall town meeting.
Yeah. In your ample spare time. You have nothing else. to
Well,
do.
I would like to.
Getting into the busy season.
Again, yeah, but I would like to contact some other communities that have also done it, and again, have the opportunity to ask them, how does this work, how doesn't it work?
Right. Yeah, okay.
Would you do it differently, whatever, can I see how you've written it down, and, because I don't like to invent something on my own when there's
Right.
probably a whole suite of communities that are already utilizing it, and they may have different resource areas than we do, but Topsfield, I think, is rather close enough that other than not having coastal, they pretty much got all the same kind of inland areas that we've got.
Yeah.
One of those hills where there's across from that witch place on Route 1, where it's going up and down like that, in Topsfield, across the street from that, there's a house right on the road, and a big sunken hollow beyond it that's connected underneath Route 1 to the field on this side. That apparently has been bought by Topsfield Fairgrounds, and may well be used for parking in the future. But
Oh, really? I did not know that.
that's off the side. Well, I would expect that you'd come back after doing this type of review and drafting, but in presenting us before we actually go to the selectmen to be put on the warrant, but that would be part of my
Oh, yeah.
authorization.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But like I said, there is in one sense a sort of immediacy to this, and
Right. Got it.
and I want to make sure, I need to be responsible and tell you about this regulatory change, but I also want to express to you how I see the interpretation of some of the verbiage here, and I want to make sure that it's consistent with what you feel, because
No,
I
think-
tell someone to file an RDA, and they could say, Oh, no, it says right here, under these minor activities, that I can do percolation tests without a decision from the
You
commission.
know they
So
will.
if I send them to you,
Yeah,
I
but,
want this to be expected, that you can
Yep.
say, oh, we already
Yep.
discussed this with our agent, and we're interpreting it, and we told him to interpret it this way.
right, no, yeah, I think we've got your back on this. Right, everyone agree?
No, I agree.
Okay.
I mean, but I would certainly look forward to the ability to have an administrative permit so that people,
It makes sense.
Yeah.
people doing the quote-unquote, if you want to use the word boilerplate or cookie cutter activities, that they can get an administrative review without having to attend a hearing.
Want to vote to authorize Brent to proceed in accordance with our discussions today?
Sure.
Sure. I will so move.
And is there a second?
I'll second it.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Good. Brent, proceed in accordance with our discussion.
Okay.
Make it so.
Number one. Right? Okay.
All right, that brings us to status reports, permits enforcement, and Red Street Farm conservation restriction. Hold that thought for last, but permits and enforcement, anything going on, enforcement wise?
No, not specifically, although I've got to do further research. An anonymous tip I received in the Rough Meadows parking lot is anonymous so much that I'm not sure I figured out where the person was talking about, so I'm still working on that.
Probably not much
There
to
is
say.
there is that problem with anonymity, that you can't go back to them and said, you know what you said actually could be interpreted as this and this and this and this, and is that?
All right, well, keep us up to date on that.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's enforcement. Brad Street Farm conservation restriction,
Okay.
what is up with that?
All right. That we were done with this.
Yeah, we've done that.
A bad penny, it keeps coming back.
No, don't, please, don't interpret it that way. There's no prescribed procedure for the state to review conservation restrictions. So in the past, the policy has been, and this is what this was the track that we were following with Mass Audubon. They came in, had what their previous experience had said to them was a conservation restriction that had been approved by the state, that seemed to cover the same type of aspects of the Brad Street Farm. And they came in to us and had a discussion with us. And at the time that discussion initiated, we sought approval for town council to look at it. We then had the detailed discussion about the community garden area and some other unique characteristics to that property. Town council reviewed it, and we got to the point where the commission said that was fine. Mass Audubon said, well, we brought you this sort of framework, it's fine with us because we've used it in the past. Went to the selectmen said, has town council reviewed this? Yes. Has the Concom reviewed this? Yes. All parties are satisfied with the language? Yes. It then got sent to EEA for their review. Apparently they're utilizing volunteers that have legal credentials, but volunteers. So it came back with a couple minor changes, and that's when it came back to the commission after town council Judy Pickett had looked at it. The commission signed off, went to the selectmen. Selectmen asked, has town council reviewed this? State reviewed it, yes. Signed off, signed the signature page. And it went back down to the state after Mass Audubon got their signatures on it, believing that it would be signed off on and get the signature of the Secretary of Environmental Affairs. We got an email back from Irene De Bono, who is in charge of conservation restrictions,
What's the date of that?
March 31st.
This year.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, just a little while ago. With some requested changes that are not substantive or whatever, but still some changes to a document that really already had signatures on it. She communicated directly with Bob Ford of Mass Audubon and Judy Pickett. Judy Pickett then copied me on this to let it know, and Judy Pickett said, well, yeah, no problem with these. I've seen these in other conservation restrictions, and yeah. But it just kind of reset us. It reset us back, and so I just needed to let you folks know about it. Just because there technically are some verbiage changes to the document, but the advice of town council, Judy Pickett, is that this doesn't trigger the need for the document to go before the commission and quote-unquote be re-signed, or go before the selectmen and be re-signed.
How are they gonna make the changes?
Yeah.
Hmm?
Then how are they gonna make the changes to a signed document?
Well-
I'm not quite clear on that.
The pages that have the signatures are in a sense standalone
Yeah.
pages within the document, so they just edit the text on the pages where they identify the thing.
Put in a little paragraph saying, our page pays for everything.
That doesn't sound right.
Yeah.
Well,
No, I mean, of course, people do that all the time, but it's not right. And I'm surprised that they,
This isn't Washington.
no.
What are the changes, Ben?
the changes are on page 1, top left, the address of the property was not included. The address of the grantor and the grantee are included instead.
Oh, jeez.
Page 10, the extinguishment section, no reference to approval by the secretary, so you have to stick in the words approval by the secretary required or necessary or something like that. Page 13, non-merger. A non-merger section is included but is not specified that the CR must be assigned to a non-fee owner to ensure enforceability by a non-fee owner.
It's inherently inconsistent.
Page 14, 3 references to CR that should be conservation restriction fully spelled out. Does not include language that attached hereto and incorporated herein are the following with a list of signature pages and exhibits. And then finally, there's a note in the file that we need the actual grant signed by the town selectmen, not just the approval. Was this resolved? Well, that has to do with the grant filing when Bradstreet Farm was being acquired, that Judy Pickett and I finally had such a tough time trying to negotiate with the attorney at DCR that the selectmen told us to stop any further negotiations, and we didn't pursue the $50,000 grant money.
Is that what that's referring to?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, that was back in like 2006 and 2007,
Right,
because their conditions were so onerous.
right.
Judy Pickett advised us not to agree to them.
Okay.
Could we just take that and everybody initial it and staple it to the back of the contract?
No, that's not how it works. But I would feel better if
Better than
you just made a motion to accept the advice of town council in regards to the proposed revisions of March 31st are required by EEA and not to reopen the hearing process on Bradstreet Farm Conservation Restriction.
Subject to the receipt of the final approved whatever the document's called at this point, conservation restriction as signed by the Irene DeBono. I think we need a copy in our files.
By the
By
secretary.
the secretary.
Yeah.
The final copy.
Right.
Bob Ford is going to provide me with the fully final edited version this week.
As signed by her.
Not signed by her, no. It gets signed by the secretary.
It's signed by the secretary. She's
Whoever.
the under secretary
Okay,
for
who's the
something.
secretary?
Who's the secretary right now? I forget.
I met him and I forget his name now. It
You mean as a male secretary at the state level?
would be- Yes,
Anyway,
he was at
I didn't say
that land conservation,
No, you didn't say.
land conservation conference in Worcester. I went
Right.
to.
The new guy. All right. Do I have such a motion? Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All against? The motion carries. It's tempting to vote no on procedural grounds. I really just don't think that's a very good way to do business. But on the other hand, I don't want to recirculate.
Bob
an
Ford and
entire-
I had an offline conversation. He
Yeah.
says, this new business is just driving him nuts, he says, because in a sense, you think you're all done.
Yeah.
They take so long to begin with, you
Yes.
think you're done, finalized, and then they pop this out at the last minute.
Because it gets on somebody else's desk for the last review.
Somebody else does a review and they feel they need to come on.
well, it's political bureaucracy.
Well, they have
People
to-
wonder why
Why it
conservative
takes so
politicians
long.
are being
They're
found
negative
very
about-
appealing these days.
Negative about these things, yeah.
They have to justify their job.
Well, it's not that Irene DeBono's job isn't very important. It's just, it's more to me that she or her office didn't do that job the first time.
Up front, right.
Which is the way it's supposed to be done.
Right, yeah.
Those are all perfectly reasonable changes. They should have
Right.
been made
Yeah.
months ago.
Yeah, especially
So maybe they were
CR
using-
abbreviation to conservation restriction, it's kind of like.
Yeah, that's kind of,
Okay, all right.
Same problem exists with regard to the historic preservation agreements.
I'm sure.
They all have to go through that office as well.
Okay, so that's it for Bradstreet Farm Conservation Restriction. That's the only
Yes,
issue? Great.
that is the only thing,
Good.
yes. This
Okay.
textual.
What else do you have?
Well, okay, so,
You just pulled something else out.
yeah, I just pulled some things out. Again, I just want to let you know about this stuff so you don't think I'm doing my own, meetings or whatever. Somewhere like April Fool's Day or April 2nd, I received a phone call requesting to have a scheduled appointment with Hayes Engineering and Saeed Abuzara. And I thought, fine, this is the Cindy Lane Bell Circle subdivision. It is a superseding order of conditions with DEP, and he hasn't gotten a certificate of compliance for that. And then the connection, the activities on the connection from Wilson Pond Lane to Cindy Lane. The fact that order of conditions that got appealed by Darling and didn't meet the stormwater standards, DEP's never issued a decision on it. So Peter Ogren, who I guess is the president of Hayes Engineering, showed up at the appointment on April 7th without Saeed Abuzara with him. I did not know the real specifics of this meeting. I just assumed it had to do something with the street acceptance of Cindy Lane. and I did not know that he specifically was going to show up. But preemptively, the day before, I had called the Northeast Regional Office and spoke to Rachel Freed, who is in charge of the Wetlands Division, since that's where the superseding order of conditions was issued, and that's where the appeal of our issued order of 2007, as far as I know, still sits without a decision to Saeed Abu Zara. So he came in to speak to me, and what he wanted to say about the Cindy Lane subdivision in connection to Wilson Pond Lane was that he had reviewed the situation, and he believed that there was a prior approval for construction of the roadway connection, and that it came from 1998, when Tim Puritan was agent for the Raleigh Commission and issued an RDA with the negative determination options for putting some pavement down and doing a reconfiguration, with the understanding that Wilson Pond Lane was supposed to go across the end of Wilson Pond, and Cindy Lane was supposed to come up and intersect it at a T intersection. And since Wilson Pond Lane came down to this cul-de-sac turnaround area back away from the pond, no, it
If I
does.
could just back up a second.
Oh.
The road that cuts across, it's the old historic path, a horse trail.
Meeting House.
Yes, that went
Right.
across the end of Wilson, the southern end of Wilson Pond.
Well,
And the Wilson Pond Road was not supposed to take a right there, but
Wilson Pond Lane was supposed to continue the
It's supposed-
same track
it's
that
supposed-
Meeting House Road is in, and then go across the end of the pond.
that's not the way I remember it. They wanted to go cut across there, but it was too wet. We discussed at length, because they came before us 2 or 3 times. This was the Darling crowd, as I remember. And
Here's-
and, you know, we were suggesting bridging, but
Yeah, well, here's the configuration of where Wilson Pond Lane was supposed to go.
yeah,
Here's the old Meeting House Road.
it still went across the end of that pond.
Yes, yeah,
So I don't,
but this is
Okay, that-
actually in the pond.
Yeah, the pond is right here, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a hedgerow that the beavers have used
Right,
right at
it's
the
where all
edge
the
of
beaver
what
dam is.
Meeting House Road used to be, and then water, the pond, is right there.
so it's actually right there, but now, but okay, I didn't remember that there were 2, that both were continuing. This didn't replace this, which is what I thought you were saying, but.
No,
But-
no, just that, well, anyway, so he came in and said to me that his interpretation of this was that there was already an issued approval, that he didn't need the order of conditions.
Across Wilson Pond?
No, to connect Cindy Lane to Wilson Pond Lane,
Could be.
that he'd already gotten approval, and I said, well, determinations of applicability as a permit are only good for 3 years, so you've got one from 98 or 96, I don't remember exactly which. It expired within 3 years, and the work wasn't done. I said, you do agree that there's work still to do? Oh, yeah, there's work still to do, we need to take the pavement out there and stuff, but we don't need to improve, we don't need to meet stormwater standards. And I said, well, you're talking to the wrong person to get confirmation of that particular point of view. I said, my understanding, and I believe the commission would back me up, that any proposed activity in a regulated wetland resource area needs an existing, currently valid permit. Whether it's an RDA or whether it's a notice of intent for an order of conditions, you need an existing valid permit to do that. And you don't have that. Well, isn't this something we could agree to? Because you know the selectmen and the planning board want to, see this acceptance. And I
That's how
said,
you
well,
agree to it. By doing that.
I said, I can check with the commission, but I think I know, I think I know, and I think the commission will back me up in saying this, is that for any proposed construction activity in the buffer zone, adjacent to freshwater wetlands or the pond there, you need a valid existing permit, and the stormwater standards, you know, initially, I think, adopted in 1998 and revised and modified in 2008, you need, for roadway stormwater, you need to have compliance with those regulations. You can't just
Right, too much has
say
changed.
you've got a
right, or-
1998 approval,
Right, no, too much has changed.
go and put pavement down here.
Stormwater things were never approved.
Right,
I mean, there were 2 or 3 proposals along here where to put them,
yeah.
and you know, there were problems with all of them.
Yeah,
Problems,
actually
exactly.
right in here,
Yeah.
because there's very limited depth to groundwater, and so anytime you dig a basin in there, and that's what I said to him, I said, well, oh yeah, there's this basin right here, so we would just send water in there. I said, well, you can't just send water in there without some kind of treatment. I says, because when I was down there reviewing that site in 2007, I watched the water from Wilson Pond flow in through the outlet of this
Yeah, I
basin
think I was
into the bottom.
with you there.
And I
Yeah.
said, that's a direct connection. That basin doesn't function at all. And I said, you can't just go put some pavement down and dump water in there without treating it, period. So you know, forgive me, but you know, I obviously had to answer him rather frankly, because I thought this was, I guess I could use the word preposterous. I thought it was kind of preposterous to think that a 1998 approval, or 96, that hadn't been constructed, I don't see how you could think the permit would still be valid
Yeah,
today.
you know that.
Yeah.
I mean, you do this stuff all the time.
So the next question was, I said, well, have you called DEP? Have you talked to DEP? No. And I said, well, you've got a superseding order of conditions that you've never closed out and getting a certificate of compliance for. And you've got a previously applied for and issued order of conditions that's in appeal, which they haven't finalized and made a decision on that appeal. I said, you should be talking to DEP. Oh, who do you talk to? I said, well, as a matter of fact, I had a conversation with Rachel Freed yesterday. And I said, she would be actually receptive to hearing from you, because they want to resolve
Finish this.
these things. So hopefully they've made that phone call, but I just wanted to relate to you. I didn't understand that I was getting myself in that type of situation, and I hope you feel I responded appropriately.
Seems right to me. I'm amazed that Kurt remember anything about this. And certainly none of the rest of us were on the commission at the time. You weren't here, and none of the rest of us were here. Sam might have been here, I don't know.
I mean, I've seen
My
some
recollection
indications.
is substantially what
Yeah.
Kurt says,
Right.
but it's been through so many.
Right.
So I just wanted to relay that to you, to let you know it happened.
All right.
And apparently, my understanding from talking to Kurt Baker, our town planner, is that the conversations with the planning board met with the same skepticism, not, the planning board didn't say, oh, well, this will be fine if you get the Conservation Commission to approve this will be okay with us. That wasn't their reaction either. It was kind of like, oh, I don't think the Conservation Commission is gonna
Good.
accept that.
All right.
Trying to pull a fast one.
Sent the president up here to say that. Really?
It's a small firm.
Is it?
Yeah, it is.
On kind of a different topic, the ZBA has requested comments about a piece of property at 164 Oxford Road that apparently needs to go before the ZBA.
That's the old auto auction place?
Well, it's a fleet storage area. apparently.
Well, it used to be an auto auction years
Yeah.
back, yeah.
And apparently, the whole reason this has come up is because they started up putting cars out there. Here's our pictometry April 2014. But April 2012, April 2008, May 2006, you have to go back to April 2004 to find cars there again. And apparently, since it's not, well, this is zoning, so I'm not gonna say too much, except that apparently, if it's not an authorized use or a regular use, if it stops for 2 years,
Right.
Well, they've been doing it, they store them there, then they fly them all down to the auction place.
apparently there's been a hiatus. And if the hiatus is for 2 years or more, they apparently lose the ability.
I don't know, I've mowed that for them, I mow it for them every year. It used to be hot top, but it's grown up through it now.
Is this the place that used to be one of those huge garbage truck companies?
Right before that was Eris's, which was a garbage truck company, this is
You
bordering.
can't see this from the street.
Yeah, actually, they took the sign down a couple of years ago. It,
Yeah.
well, it fell down or whatever. But they have been, I know when I go out there and I'll mow it once, twice a year. It used to be all hot top years back. And they still, I'll go out there sometime, and there'll be a dozen trucks, or there'll be 200 cars, or whatever. I mean, it's almost like, did they stripping them out here or what?
I'm surprised they haven't asked you for an affidavit about,
So Art, you're saying that even though in May, April of each of these years, there were no cars, you think there were cars?
Oh, the cars are only stored for like 3 days,
Yeah.
whatever. They
Yeah.
bring them in from all over New England, then they
So
bring them to
those
an auction.
snapshots could easily have missed that.
Oh, they could miss them in one day,
right.
yeah.
Oh, yeah.
But, I mean, you
I'm
can tell,
I'm just saying
you can
why
tell if you
this is
drive in
going-
there.
I'm just relating to you why this is going for the ZBA. So they've asked for comments.
Okay.
Oh, it's going through the zoning. Because he's got, you don't have the office buildings and stuff on here. This is only like half of the yard.
Well,
Yeah, I
There's
mean.
trailers, offices, the whole bit. He's there almost every day.
it's a big parcel.
Apparently
what-
someone complained or.
What
something.
comments they want from us?
Well, that's what I wanted to discuss with you, because this is not, this is not the usual thing that I get to ask comments for. But this is in our zone too, this is in our municipal drinking water supply protection area. And now that I'm actually in the presence of someone who's been out on the site
This
on a
has been here,
regular
this has been here
basis.
40 years.
Right.
Yeah.
This is an activity, though, the fleet, the storage of fleets of vehicles is identified as a high potential pollutant activity under the stormwater standards.
In a zone two.
And therefore, and now to hear that there definitely isn't impervious area that they're parking these vehicles on, there is the potential for contamination to the groundwater. Since-
It's running all through there.
I think the contamination came from when Eris's had the building anyways. That's that's got 21E on that anyways.
Well-
That's the next door neighbor.
Yeah.
Probably fell right here.
But anyway, from our standpoint, we have no records of anyone ever coming before us about this property. No filings or anything else. I'm just saying that once I realized where it was, and this is the well field at the 129 Boxer Grove well
Is
field.
that what that is?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So, yeah, that's
What is the, what
the
is,
blue circle.
what is
yes.
being asked of the ZBA?
ZBA got a complaint, is that it?
Well, they made them file because I guess the building inspector was informed that this use had ceased for 2 years. So applicant is requesting a special permit from the Board of Appeals for the change of a non-conforming use under section 5.2 of the Raleigh zoning bylaws.
Change from a non-conforming use to what? Another non?
Well, no, the ability to engage in the non-conforming use expires if
If you
that
don't
use
use
doesn't
it.
occur for 2 years, is my limited understanding. I'm not gonna say I'm an expert on this.
No, I think that's
what I was
correct.
told.
Yeah, I think that's right.
So someone, and I don't know who, or whether it came from a complaint or what, but they stated that, this use had been
Okay.
discontinued for 2 years and that they thought
Well,
they would start.
But that has nothing to do with us. So I guess all that we would say is, we would express some concern because this is zone two,
Right.
but we've never had any permit. I mean, I don't know, the comment in a vacuum is kind of
This would be,
difficult.
Boxford.
Right.
Never visited the site.
But see, this
Art
is only
says
half
it's,
it, you got all the office.
it's not
buildings
impervious,
right
but
here.
we don't know, really.
But anyway,
Yeah, it's just like.
our normal standards were that there should be a maintained surface that's impervious for the storage and parking of vehicles that all contain, fluids.
Yep.
Um,
They used to have auctions there, but they haven't had auctions in a long time. I wonder if he's probably applied for the
Somebody
auction
said,
permit.
somebody said, again, as an aside comment to me, that there was like 2 brothers or something involved in this, and there may have been a falling out from one
I don't know,
about
but it's a
this
large,
going on.
nice piece of
Huge,
property,
huge
yeah.
property.
And it's pretty high too. I mean, it could be developed.
It's a shame to see a section 40B in there, huge apartment complex.
I don't know that anything like that is gonna happen, but right now, somebody called into question, they're
Oh, yeah.
pulling these cars in and out of there, so.
Could you do that in the zone two?
Sure. Why not?
Septic?
Well, they've been doing that since before there was a conservation commission.
Art says it's fairly high ground, so.
Oh, yeah, it's all flat, it's perfect.
So it would work, right?
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Well,
Zone 2.
It's all sand over there. It's
Yeah,
that old side
so
of the road.
that's, and there's all wetland right next to it, if not in it. Hmm.
Well,
So my only thought was to express the concern that all these vehicles were being stored on pervious ground that doesn't look like it's well-maintained impervious surface from any of the photographs that we've got, and that, there's a high risk of potential contamination to the ground and potential contamination to groundwater. Now, that might just mean that the ZBA might tell them to fix and pave a surface to park the vehicles on, to make sure that, anything that ruptured or dripped or spilled didn't go right down into the ground, and that could be the end of it. I mean,
Do we really?
other than that, parking cars doesn't necessarily pose a threat to nearby wetlands and stuff, and so.
It's this.
We don't, seems to me we don't want to be in a position of suggesting that they have to repave it. I mean, it seems to me it's better off as being pervious land. And if this is only temporary storage for a day or two before these things are moved on, you're not apt to have a lot of leakage and maintenance unless there is some being done there, in which case I agree that it ought to be done within a garage area or a place where there is.
Well, we don't have to say anything about anything other than the fact that we believe that vehicles with fluid petroleum products should be on an impervious surface, and leave it at that.
Right. In the zone two area.
No.
Is there any grandfathering in that?
The environment doesn't have grandfathers.
for zoning,
Unless you want to be drinking MBTEX.
I think that
I don't
for
know.
zoning,
I
the
don't know.
grandfathering expires in 2 years. That's the basic
I mean,
question, right? Or,
Well, it's
again,
been
we,
used steady.
well, right.
we only know what we get submitted to us, which doesn't necessarily say, that,
It's not running off.
that
I don't think
vehicles are
I
on
don't
the
think
It's running
zoning
off.
knows that. I don't think the zoning
It's
board
running in.
knows anybody
Yeah,
who
but you
knows
got
that.
stormwater
Oh,
to
yeah.
control that.
Oh, yeah, that's,
You can get
Widely
enough
known.
fluid.
yeah. That was a big operation
Well, that's not being suggested.
years ago.
No, we're not suggesting.
They used to do the auctions right there. Now,
You don't want it to.
what it
go
is,
to
all the
ground.
little car dealers will bring their cars down there and then they
Not
all
in the
get trucked
drinking
into
Right,
Boston. Or with.
right, right.
PBD.
So basically, it's just a temporary parking area.
Yep. Didn't even know it was there. Never heard of
Well,
it.
you can't see it from the street. They don't wanna see it from the street, cause that way the kids aren't gonna go in there and strip everything. I mean, it's all fenced in, and, it's fences all around it.
Got a few dogs around.
Vicious, I was gonna say, vicious attack dogs.
Yeah.
At
Okay,
least,
so
at least a
that's-
sign for vicious attack dogs.
That's only my thoughts.
No, they get the kids curious too.
I had a
Yes,
couple of
that's
things
true.
I wanted to inquire about.
Okay.
One of which is, what did the selectmen do about the renaming of the Girl Scout property? You wrote a letter to them. and
Yes.
the
Yeah,
Community
just-
Preservation
Just
Committee
let me
had a-
let me
had a motion.
pause and recollect my fact, my thoughts.
Did you go to that meeting?
No.
I didn't either. Get any feedback?
I didn't. We had asked them that they could, we told them they could have a joint meeting with us on the subject if they wanted to.
They would like to have a joint meeting with the commission on May 11th. Monday, May 11th. And the only reason, it doesn't have to be a joint meeting, the only reason they are stating it as being a joint meeting is in case 3 or more commissioners wish to attend that meeting of the selectmen, and so therefore then they
Right.
would make it a
Open
joint
meeting
meeting
issues,
so that we could have 3 or more commissioners in attendance. If you wish to just be there, so we have to say
Yes.
that it would be a joint meeting, but it doesn't have to be a joint meeting. That just makes it so any of you or all of you could attend the meeting, even if you just wanted to be there and just listen,
What's the date, the 11th?
the 11th.
Is it a time specified or not?
No, but usually they schedule their appointment times starting at a little past 7, because they do this Pledge of Allegiance and Citizen Query thing usually from 7 to 7:10.
Right.
So lots of times they'll start scheduling appointments around either 7:10 or 7:15 and go to 8 o'clock.
Well, they'll post that, a week ahead, won't they, the
Oh, yeah.
tentative schedule?
Well, actually, they do the agenda preparation the Thursday, they get it to the town clerk's
And they're
office
usually
by
pretty much
noontime
right
on
on.
Thursday.
Yeah.
Well, let's take a little poll, see if we really need a joint meeting. Who can go? I cannot.
I cannot,
That's,
I don't know, but I would like to, because the Community Preservation Committee has a specific request for a name. And
Right. So you'd be a good choice.
Right, and they did read,
I'm
they
not
did
sure.
read your letter
Maybe,
in the record.
but
Maybe.
I could probably go, but I'd have to be reminded.
Fair enough.
I mean, I don't know why they just couldn't have made a decision on their own hook, but
Well, I don't think we're gonna get
I want to be open to your participation.
it sounds like the chances, well, they can always post it as a joint meeting just in case.
That's-
I don't think
yeah,
the
that's
chances are
exactly
very
why-
high that there'll be a quorum of conservation commissioners, but I hope somebody will go.
I will hopefully yield with them.
All right. And I liked your idea, I thought that was fine. Batchelder Brook something.
Reservation.
Reservation, sounds good, sounds good to me.
It's the name already.
Would you guys mind if it was conservation area, since we haven't usually done too many reservations?
No, I don't, it's not that part, that's fine, whatever.
Sounds more impressive as a reservation. And it's going to be active usage rather than passive usage, so I think that.
Reservation has a bad connotation though.
Reservation?
Indian reservations.
Well, save that for discussions.
I have Native American blood in me, and it doesn't bother me.
There you go.
All right. Well, if you have opinions about this, show up at the meeting on the 11th. I don't care about that part, but I like the Batchelder Brook. I like it better than naming it after a person.
Right.
I
Yeah.
agree.
Well-
What was your alternative suggestion, Ben? Conservation what? Area or?
Area.
Batchelor Brook Conservation Area. Well, it seems that most of our open space properties here are called conservation areas.
It's nice to stay in
Be
the
consistent.
convention.
Mhm.
Variety's nice too.
Well, it doesn't leave you figuring out, well, is there a certain
what's the
something?
difference
Is there a
between the
certain
two?
something that's being reserved here? I
Right.
mean, do you have, you know,
Right.
the
Yeah.
left-footed
Yeah.
deer mouse eater that is only found on this
Yeah.
piece of property or whatever?
All right. Anything else, Chris?
Yeah, I wanted to know if the commission would be receptive to the possible scheduling of an Earth Day activity. And I realize these pictures are wrong for Hunsley Hills. They're from the flyer we used last year for the Piggery Farm Boxford Road cleanup, so I would replace them, but I wanted to get the commission's thoughts on having a trail day. Now, it doesn't have to be called trail cleanup event, it could just be called, I don't know, Trail Day, it could just be called the Trail Day. But I just thought that Hunsley Hills, after this winter, it would probably be a good idea to reconnoiter all the trails. I've got all the trail markings up, but, you know, branches may have come down, trees may have come down. Do the usual pickup in the parking lot, there's usually some scattered debris, although I'll be very honest with you, I've been stopping in there every couple of weeks as the snow melts, and I've hardly pulled anything out of there.
Well, that's nice.
Do you have the camera yet?
Pardon me?
Do you have the trail camera yet?
No, not yet.
Talking about this Saturday?
Yeah, that's a proposal for,
I've got 2 conflicts already. Can't go. I don't have any objection to this idea, I mean, it's a good idea.
I'm not sure if I can do it.
Is that
Kinda
definitely
committed,
the
but
date?
I think it's a great
Because I have a
idea.
con-
no, it's not, it's
You
not
can pick a
definitely
later
the date,
date.
it was, again, just an idea.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
That'd be good.
Oh, yeah, it's a good idea.
Can we get some
We could
publicity for this?
set a date, maybe a little later, after the 18th.
So,
I'd be willing
that
to
would be,
go.
I think, the 25th.
25th, or the next one is May
Is the Saturday.
2nd.
I think it needs a tip and mosquito warning.
Oh, no, well, those are a permanent
With
part of
long
the
pants.
kiosk.
I saw a mosquito this morning on my property.
I did too.
Came out of a snowbank.
2 warm days.
Yeah. Well, I picked ticks up from Smith Lane the other night.
I think a little later, 25th or even the 2nd would be better. You can get more participation, but yeah,
Yeah.
I think it's a good idea.
Okay.
You want to pick a date? Sooner we pick it, the more of us will be able to go.
Well, again, the 25th, Earth Day is what? Earth Day is like the 21st or something like that, I think.
Is it?
Yeah.
Okay, so you want to...
Oh, wait, I'm sorry, it might help if I really looked at April, wouldn't it?
You don't want to get too far away from that day.
No, Mass Audubon's having their Work for Wildlife Day on the 25th, which is their Earth Day activity.
Okay,
Trail
So-
Association's doing the 15th of May.
May. What about May 2nd? That work? Probably not a good idea to do the same day as Audubon,
No.
if only for you, Brett. You probably want to do that.
Well, I'm actually, my wife has to work, but I'm not involved in that. I
You're
was
not
going
going to
to
do that? Okay.
She and I are actually talking about doing something this weekend when we do the roadside pickup, but I didn't, the roadside pickup is so non-glamorous or whatever, I thought it would be better to just do a trail day on Hunsley Hill.
They're equally non-glamorous.
Well, but the scenery's a lot nicer on the trails at Hunsley Hills, so.
That's true, they don't have cars.
Yeah, you don't have cars whizzing by you and dropping out, so, yeah, May 2nd, I don't I know.
With that.
Why don't we just leave it up to Brent to pick a date that's convenient for him?
And the other thing too, depending on how many people show up, there's that future trail corridor going from the Hunsley Hills parking lot heading over towards the police station that could be brushed out or whatever, depending on how much, how energetic the people are. But remember, we got a couple miles of trails up there on Hunsley Hills, so just going up and preambling the trail system is a decent activity.
Take up your 2 hours.
I mean, and what I anticipated is that people would come and they just would go up and we assign them different sections of trail to go
Yep.
and take a look at, and then if they actually found something like a blowdown or whatever, they'd either call me on the cell phone or whatever. I'd have my chainsaw there and stuff, so I could take care of the heavy lifting stuff
No, okay.
and just have people do just kind of the light.
The scouting.
How,
Yeah.
how much, how hard would it be to coordinate like publicity, so you can get your picture in the paper and they can see that, Raleigh Conservation's doing this?
Well, not too hard, because when I get the thing actually made up and we decide on a date, first of all, I would send it to Raleigh Community Media and then also send it to the Daily
So we can get
News.
somebody else, because we didn't have anybody there last time.
Well, remember the last time was.
It was rainy.
It was a rainy day.
Yeah, like rainy day, but we got a lot of stuff done.
Oh, yeah.
Not really.
But it's
I-
nice that the
I-
community knows that
Well,
this is
yeah.
being done. That's my point. Let them see their dollars being utilized the right way.
Well, it's all it's volunteer.
Yeah, but under our tutelage,
Yeah.
our eye.
All right, I think
Okay.
whatever works for you, but May
May
2nd
2nd?
sounds like a good choice.
Okay.
Yeah,
It's not too far from now, but not too soon.
I have one more
I
thing
am sorry, Kansas.
I'd like to bring up. And that is this letter that Deborah Egan received, that Brent forwarded to at least a couple of us, in regard, letter from the National Wildlife Federation and the Ipswich River Watershed Association, the voice of the river, which is proposing 2 regional task force, one involving Salisbury, Newburyport, and Newbury, and the other involving Essex, Ipswich, and Raleigh, the EIR, so-called task force. They want Raleigh town officials to join as a project partner, and have suggested Brent's name as one of the parties to be involved in this. And I have expressed some concern as to the time demands on Brent in this. It says, as described in the enclosed project timeline, the EIR task force will meet up to 4 times over a 2-year project period and will be instrumental in ensuring that the town's interests are represented during the project. I just think it's time that if Brent is going to continue to be asked by the selectmen to join this kind of thing, and I think it's a feather in his cap, and I think it's something that expands his horizons, and I think it's a compliment to him, and I'm all for it from that standpoint, that I think we ought to ask the selectmen for an expansion of his hours.
What do you think about that, Brent? I know
Would
Rick
you-
brought it up last week.
Would you allow a continuance of this so I can get some, I've got something in mind, but I would like an opportunity to get some more concrete information in regards to it.
Sure. Sure. That's fine. Let's talk about it next time.
My only concern, there are no problems with that, but, is that, selectmen continue to ask you for special things, including such things as working on open space and working on the Girl Scout property projects, and you're always wonderful in terms of saluting the flag and doing these kinds of things, and yet at the same time, I think they take something away from the time available to the Conservation Commission, and you may not want to do this. I'm not asking you to, this may be part of your reply here, but And you may not want extra hours either. You know, we are way behind on minutes, and that's a rather routine administrative kind of thing, but it's a necessary kind of thing. And I just think if the selectmen want to ask you to continue to do these kinds of things, that we need to ask them if it's something that would fit in with your interests in general, that you be appropriately remunerated and have time to do it. That's all I need to say.
Fair enough.
I think that's fair.
Okay. So we'll take that up again at the May 5th meeting, which may be on May 6th. But probably won't.
That sounds good.
Meeting, maybe.
May,
Maybe
on
the
May-
6th.
May 5th or May 6th, May or May not.
Now, before we wrap up,
Okay.
received email today with an attached open meeting law guidance, which is fresh, March 18th, 2015, from our new Attorney General. I have 2 hard copies here if someone would like a hard copy, but we need to responsibly review this document to see if there's been any changes in how we handle open meetings, but it was, I think, I sent it out to everybody.
Sent it
As
to
an
me
email
anyway.
that has a PDF, so
Yep.
if you're happy looking at the PDF on your computer, fine. I thought at a bare minimum that Judy would appreciate having a hard copy to peruse and preamble at some point in time. If anybody else would like a hard copy, I've got
No,
another
I'm
one
all set
right here.
here. I'll read the electronic one, but that's good.
I've got one more thing. Where do we as a commission stand on the signing off on the conflict of interest things? I haven't had time to get to it.
Done.
Well, you do need to complete your certificate so we can get
Done.
that
Done.
turned into the town clerk.
You can do that every year?
Every
Every 2
Already
years.
passed
Nope,
it.
so I'm all set for another year.
Yes, so the training needs to be done
I
by
need-
you,
Yep.
Kurt, Judy.
I'm up to date. I just did it last year.
Oh, you did the train, okay.
Yeah, he's done, I'm done. Don't know about Sam, and
Yeah.
I thought I did it last year.
2 years ago,
No.
time goes by.
No, wait a minute, somebody else, you just did it last year.
No.
No, 2 years ago.
2 years ago, before any
Right.
sitting
No, because
commissioner.
remember one night we almost didn't have a quorum?
No. Why not? That doesn't have anything to do with.
Oh, that was a conflict of interest thing.
Yeah, no, this is the training.
This is online training.
Yes.
For,
There's a test that's online, right?
Yeah, it's for,
For the ethics,
yeah, for the
Commission.
Ethics Commission, that's the word I was looking for.
and at the end of the training, you enter your information and you get this
Yeah.
little certificate.
You can
Gotta do
frame
it
but
it.
you have to do that as soon as you get elected, or appointed.
You very well may have, but then it's a 2-year cycle,
Every
and
2
they've,
years.
and they've kind of homogenized
Yeah.
all the rest of it,
Yeah.
the rest of us, so.
You can do it, I don't know, or you can look up whether you need it to do it.
Well, call the town clerk's office.
Yeah, I'll just stop and ask town clerks, yeah.
Ask Susan Hazen, say.
That's where it's on file, it's down there, it's, they give it to her, yeah.
It's all online.
I need the link.
Okay, I'll get that back out to you.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
So here's
That's right, yeah.
the old map.
This is a very old map, I think. From the seminary.
Hand painted on plywood from the Girl Scout Lodge, the Brookside Lodge is where it was nailed on the wall.
And Brent and I were looking at this, I'm not sure this path here exists at this point,
Yeah.
along the stream.
I have
here.
not been able to find this trail, although I have found some of the blazes intermediately out in the woods, so.
I've walked that trail in the past.
Yeah, along this stream.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's probably overgrown now, it's been a long time ago that I did that.
Yeah.
The stream's a lot bigger now than it was then.
Yeah.
Certainly this time of
Beaver
year.
activity on it and stuff.
pretty
So the wildlife safety zone signs have been installed on Smith Lane. The Raleigh Municipal Light Department gave me permission to utilize 3 of their poles going into the cell tower. And then I've installed 2 other signs right at where the gate is to the former Girl Scout property. And you folks, you see I got my kit all set up. And you folks authorized the procurement of my weapons of choice.
Hope you only paid that for you.
I'm using a little hammer.
As well as my removal tool,
Didn't have much.
where I already have a collection of the old
Little notches for.
no trespassing signs,
Hold the nail.
since we want people
That's
to.
cool.
You put an 8-penny nail in there and hold it this way.
Or it doesn't, but it's supposed to anyway.
No, it will.
Then you just, makes sense. So you don't hit your finger.
Oh, I could manage to do that anyway.
You need a belt loop
So
now,
it started.
so you can hang it off your belt when you're walking in there.
I got my little canvas rucksack or whatever. Actually, when I start doing those things, I just walk along holding them.
Maybe you need a taser in case you're charged by a bull deer or a bear or something.
Bull raccoon.
Anything, yeah, rabid animal in the woods. Need some defense.
Yeah, I
Actually,
think we should vote
since I was
to
on-
arm our conservation agent. Don't you think that makes sense?
Yeah, like bow and arrow, so, yeah.
well, I went a short distance down Smith Lane last night.
Yeah.
The peepers, yeah.
Yeah, I heard of-
Peepers and the clucking are the wood frogs.
Really.
Oh, okay.
And I had to sit still for a half an hour to get this to start back up again because they felt my footsteps. But the wood frogs are in extremely amorous mode right now and didn't care whether I was there or not.
The ones down on Central Street are almost deafening.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Or
it's
you
getting
mean,
pretty-
no,
it's
not
pretty
Central,
close
the
to
other
death.
side of the house.
Yeah,
Yeah,
just
but
down.
there where Lane used to live.
Yeah, yes.
So, but that brings up the fact, if you are interested in going visiting any vernal pools or whatever, the activity is apparently going on right now.
Yeah, it seemed to start all at once.
There was still
too.
some ice on the
Yeah.
shaded side of the pool out there.
Didn't hear anything last week.
Hearing the mating dance of the skydive of the woodcocks these days.
Yes, yes, actually, they've been, at the Topsfield Sanctuary, they've been active for the last 3 weeks
Really?
at dusk. Yeah, coming out and doing their twittering and then their descending spiral flight, trying to attract the.
Haven't seen the bobcat lately. But my son-in-law did a fisher cat last night
Yeah.
down at the auto body shop.
Heard one?
Hmm?
Yeah, heard one or saw one?
Hit one.
Hit one. Oh, okay.
He tried not to, but I would say basically no great loss.
I was gonna say, no great loss in my book.
I had a
Evil
fox at
beast.
2 o'clock in the morning out under our bird feeder one night recently.
Nasty
Yeah, there was a
fuckers.
fox on our street, on our driveway, last few weeks, many mornings. If
Is
you get
that
up
your
early.
same one, do you suppose?
I don't know.
I bet.
Yeah.
It's probably part of the family. We have a gray fox, which is peculiar.
Yeah,
He's
no, this isn't the
definitely a
gray fox. Yeah, this one's an ordinary red fox.
Totally different color.
All right, that's the wildlife report.
Yep, that's it.
Is there a motion to adjourn? So moved.
Second.
Second? All in favor?
Would be very rude when we were both at Bradford's